The war in Ukraine has proven that a long, drawn-out war requires large quantities of simple, cheap weapons, not just a limited number of high-tech weapons. The West should take this into account before it's too late, writes Business Insider. The publication notes that Western countries have long been relying on expensive advanced weapons that are superior to similar weapons of potential adversaries, but this is not enough to win. Gabrielius Landsbergis, who was Lithuania's foreign minister until the end of last year, noted that weapons production in the West is expensive and time-consuming, while the Russians quickly produce something cheap that is not a pity to lose in large quantities. NATO's Secretary-General Mark Rutte recently expressed a similar view, saying that speed is important, not perfection. As Business Insider notes, high-intensity conflicts consume men and equipment very quickly, requiring armies to be more quantitative than just qualitative. At the same time, cheap weapons are also very effective, as demonstrated by inexpensive drones that destroy much more expensive equipment in large numbers. Russia also uses cheap guided bombs, thereby saving expensive missiles. The authors of the publication note that advanced expensive weapons are also needed, but for performing complex specific tasks. For example, the Patriot is definitely not suitable for fighting cheap drones. Troels Lund Poulsen, Denmark's defense minister, told BI that the West needs far more low-cost weapons to counter threats posed by Russia and China. He said this was one of the lessons from Ukraine, which can produce cost-effective weapons and even achieve capabilities comparable to expensive Western systems. War experts warn that the US could quickly exhaust its stockpiles of essential weapons in a war with China, so repelling a single salvo of Chinese missiles at a military base could cost many millions of dollars. An American military veteran who previously fought in Ukraine told BI that the war is so different from fighting insurgents or terrorists that some Western soldiers have been killed in Ukraine simply because they expected an easy ride and did not realize how inadequate their training was for the realities of full-scale war. Landsbergis said Russia was probably more dangerous than ever. So if there was ever a time to not be complacent, it is now. He said Europe needed to brace itself because the most dangerous times are ahead.
President Donald Trump's national security advisor said Friday that Ukraine will agree to give the U.S. access to its country's critical rare earth minerals as repayment for U.S. support during the war. According to Associated Press speaking at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference outside of Washington, D.C., Mike Waltz said, "Here's the bottom line, President Zelensky is going to sign that deal. And you will see that in the very short term. And that is good for Ukraine. What better could you have for Ukraine than to be in an economic partnership with the United States?" Waltz added. The comments come just a day after Waltz told reporters that Trump is frustrated with Zelensky after he rejected the offer presented last week by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent that would have given the U.S. access to Ukrainian minerals as repayment for U.S. wartime support and future aid for Ukraine. Waltz also pushed back against what he called the narrative in the media that the Trump administration is not negotiating or working with its European allies, insisting it is engaging all of our European allies, absolutely. Waltz noted that French President Emmanuel Macron will visit the White House on Monday, followed by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Thursday. Waltz called Trump the President of Peace, and predicted he will receive the Nobel Peace Prize for his work to end the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. "By the end of this all, we're going to have the Nobel Peace Prize sitting next to the name of Donald J. Trump," Waltz said.
Well, let me make one thing clear. We would not be in this position, not even close, if it weren't for the leadership of Donald J. Trump. Period. Right? I had the honor of sitting in the Oval Office and listening to President Trump speak with President Putin of Russia, and hearing both Putin and then immediately Zelensky both say only under President Trump's leadership, say this to him, and only he could drive an end to this war. So under Trump, this war will end, and it will end soon, and he is the president of peace.
How are are we going to get Zelensky, President Zelensky, to cooperate?
Yeah. Well, so first, and this is the part that the media just wants to ignore, it was Zelensky last September, as part of his victory plan, it was Zelensky that proposed, hey, let's go into a partnership together.
Right.
If the United States will invest in us, we have aluminum, we have gallium, we have tritium, we have all of these rare earth minerals that the modern economy needs. A lot of them are not fully developed. They need investment. President Trump's a deal maker. And so now President Trump proposes the deal,
right,
and sent our Treasury Secretary all the way out to Kyiv to propose it, and then we get this rhetoric in the media. Well, look, here's the bottom line. President Zelensky is going to sign that deal. And you will see that in the very short term. And that is good for Ukraine. What better could you have for Ukraine than to be in an economic partnership with the United States, number one? What better could you have for Ukraine to stop the killing, number two? And you know what? We have an obligation to you all, the American taxpayer, to recoup the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been invested in this war. You know, and all, the other narrative you have in the media is, well, we're not consulting with our allies in Europe. President Trump has talked to Macron twice last week. He's coming here Monday. The Prime Minister of Britain is coming here next Thursday. We are engaging all of our European allies, absolutely. The NATO Secretary General and I just spoke. You establish peace through strength. Mm-hmm. And we have been demanding that the Europeans step up and contribute to their own defense. And as of now, a third of our NATO allies still are not contributing the minimum, which is 2% of their GDP that they committed to a year ago, or I'm sorry, 10 years ago. So that's unacceptable. And if, you know what, the Europeans want to take a bigger role in their own security, that falls in line with America First principles as far as I'm concerned, as far as President Trump's concerned. So, you know what, he's kind of rattled their cage a bit. And now they're saying, you know what, suddenly they found more. And they're coming to the table with more. Fine by us. He's going to end the war in Europe. He is going to end the wars in the Middle East. He is going to reinvest the United States and our leadership in our own hemisphere, from the Arctic to the border to Panama, all the way down to our good friends in Argentina with Milei that you saw yesterday. And you know what? By the end of this all, we're going to have the Nobel Peace Prize sitting next to the name of Donald J. Trump. And who opposes peace? Like, I mean, how do the Democrats oppose peace?
You bring up a great question.